Exposed, the haunted lives of 50 sinister temple Pr0stitutes in Mesopotamia's cursed shadows. The night was thick with a heaviness that clung to the air, a palpable dread that crept along the darkened streets. In that moment, Sarah felt it deep in her bones. She had invited ghosts into her home. As she grasped the cold railing of the staircase, a chill zipped down her spine. The old house, with its peeling wallpaper and sagging ceilings, felt alive, beckoning her to uncover its secrets. Why did the air turn so frigid whenever she crossed the threshold? Each crack of a branch, each rustle of leaves, ignited the fear nestled in her heart, threatening to unravel the fragile peace she sought. Settling into the quaint suburban neighborhood, Sarah hoped for a new beginning, a fresh start away from the haunted memories of her past. Yet her dreams began to twist. Her daughters, Lily and Emma, with their innocent laughter, filled the house with warmth, but soon the playful drawings began to emerge. Women clad in flowing garments, their faces twisted in sorrow, filled the pages. "Look, Mommy! They're sad," Lily declared one afternoon. Sarah laughed it off, but unease gnawed at her. What could children possibly know of sadness infused in the air like the scent of dampness lingering in corners? Days folded into weeks, but the eerie sensations only intensified. Forgotten drafts sneaked through the house, rattling the pictures on the walls and making Sarah's heart race at every unexpected sound. She began to hear her name whispered late at night, a haunting echo that made her skin prickle. Shadows flickered just out of view, always evading her gaze. Each night, she'd lie awake, clutching her daughters tightly, swaddling them in impossible hopes. Yet the creeping dread tethered her to the reality she could no longer ignore. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. One sleepless night, Sarah found herself wandering the creaky halls, guided by the ice-cold grip of fear. The attic door beckoned, and soon she found herself rummaging through dust-covered boxes. A diary lay nestled beneath an ornate blue shawl, yellowed pages whispering tales of lives entwined in sorrow. The words told of women brought there by circumstance, fated to serve the desires of a corrupt pastor who kept vigil over their suffering. How could such innocence turn so sinister? As she read, she felt an overwhelming connection to those lost souls, sensing their haunting cries blending with her daughter's nightmares. The girls woke screaming, their innocent minds burdened by the relentless whispers of the past. Sarah's breath hitched as the pieces began to fit. The town's facade of purity cloaked a blood-soaked history of betrayal. The pastor's smile, once charming, lingered with a sinister promise. He held dominion over something dark, binding their spirits to the life she thought was hers. Faces pressed against windows, eyes watching her every move. The formerly friendly neighbors morphed into a chorus of suspicion. Every glance, every hushed whisper, intensified her solitude. Desperate to shield her children from the sinister hold of their new home, her heart raced with the realization: the spirits of the temple prostitutes were not just echoes. They were alive, determined to reclaim what was owed. Would she save her daughters, or would the specters of the past claim them instead? The shadows thickened around her, and she knew the truth would either set them free or plunge them into a nightmare beyond compare. The next morning, sunlight sliced through the dusty windows, a temporary illusion of safety, but it couldn't chase away the unease dwelling in Sarah's mind. Lily and Emma were still asleep, their faces peaceful, unaware of the turbulence that churned around them. As Sarah moved through the house, anxiety pulled in her stomach, twisting tighter with each creak of the floorboards beneath her feet. She couldn't shake the feeling of eyes following her. Returning to the attic, Sarah was determined to uncover more. She needed answers. She flung open the door, and felt the cold air whip around her like an eager specter. Dust motes danced in the light, yet the shadows lurked deeper, untouched by warmth. Rummaging again through the boxes, her fingers brushed against rough edges, and unearthed a hidden piece of fabric. It was an intricately woven shawl, like the one described in the diary, and the moment she touched it, she recoiled. The chill in the air surprised her, morphing into a suffocating dread that clamped around her throat. She stumbled backward, her pulse racing as whispers surged around her, unintelligible at first, then gradually forming into her name, Sarara. The air thickened, and a shadow darted past her peripheral vision, lurking just outside her focus. With a surge of courage, she took a hesitant step over the threshold into the dimly lit space. A sudden slamming of the attic door sent Sarah's heart into overdrive. Trapped. Panic crashed over her. She fumbled for the knob, her hands slick with sweat, but it wouldn't budge. The whispers swirled, a cacophony of sorrow echoing in her ears. "Help us find us!" shuddering, Sarah pressed her ear against the door, the wood clamoring with coldness. A face appeared in the corner of her vision, pale, gaunt, and with eyes that reflected unimaginable grief. She recoiled, gasping, clutching at her chest to stifle the rising bile. "What do you want?" she choked out, her voice echoing futilely in the enclosing darkness. "Restore our story." Then silence enveloped the attic, deep and heavy, as if the world outside had vanished. She trembled, catching the glimpse of the woman's face in a beam of light, eyes pooling with liquid sorrow. Frantic, she struggled against the door once more, pounding on it with her fists. The cries of her daughters pierced the air beyond Mommy. A storm of dread gripped her heart. Time dilated, mixing her terror with a desperate resolve. She couldn't let whatever lingered in this house take them too. Finally, with a forceful thrust, the door broke free from its restraints. She stumbled out, gasping for fresh air and alive with the weight of what had sought to imprison her. But the moment of relief was short-lived. Every corner of the house radiated an oppressive energy, shadows pulsing, twisting, as if alive. The walls seemed to whisper secrets, spilling out the history she had become entwined in. In her rush, she found her daughters huddled together, terror etched across their faces. "Mommy, we keep seeing them," Lily sobbed, pointing toward the window. Sarah's heart sank. Beyond the glass, the neighbors, once merely curious, stood in a line, expressions morphed into twisted masks of despair, their mouths moving as if chanting a dark spell. "Help us!" they snarled in unison. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The realization crashed over her: she was no longer just a spectator. She was part of the twisted history of this town. And this time, it was just her daughters in danger. The walls themselves were calling for her to choose. Would she confront the curse that bound them, or flee, and in doing so, risk losing her daughters forever? As she held them close, the room darkened, shadows closing in, their cries echoing around her. Sarah knew the battle was only just beginning. What choice would she make? The town might have been cursed, but now it wanted something back. The temperature dropped as the shadows converged around Sarah, wrapping her in a cloak of foreboding. Every instinct screamed to get her daughters away from the windows, away from the chanting crowd outside. "This isn't happening," she whispered, clutching Lily and Emma tighter, their small bodies trembling against her protective grip. "Mommy, they want you," Emma whimpered, her wide eyes reflecting pure fear. Was it possible they could sense the dread thrumming through Sarah? The echoes of the whispers had left a ring in her ears, reverberating with ominous insistence. Each heartbeat pushed the weight of an invisible burden deeper into her chest. "Stay close, girls," she murmured, taking a journey back through their dilapidated home. Each step felt like wading through treacle, the atmosphere thick with unshed tears and unfulfilled longing. Shadows flickered at the edges of her vision, taunting her like dark creatures wanting to snatch her away. As she led them toward the back door, it suddenly slammed shut, an invisible force driving it home with an unyielding anger. The girls jumped, and Sarah's pulse quickened. "No, no, no!" Panic flared, igniting a spark of determination. She could not let this darkness take her family. "Help us! Help us!" The chorus of haunting cries made the walls tremble, a dissonant hymn begging for attention. That accursed shawl lay bitter against her memory. The whispers had painted a vivid picture of desperation that struck her heart. "Mommy!" Lily cried again, pointing toward the fireplace. The cold air had thickened with something dark and heavy. Gritting her teeth, Sarah faced the mantel. There was a framed photograph there, hidden in the shadows, almost begging for acknowledgement. She swept it into her shaking hands, the glass cracked and smeared with grime. The image revealed a group of women, pale, ethereal charms of beauty with hollow eyes echoing the pain that now clawed at Sarah's gut. The woman from the attic was among them. "Who are you?" she breathed, the revelation sending chills racing up her spine. Suddenly, another knock rumbled against the back door, deeper this time. It was as if the house itself mourned beneath the pressure. She threw a glance back at the girls, whose wide eyes mirrored her confusion. The photograph began to shimmer, blurring, and the echo of the women's sorrow grew louder like a gathering storm. "Restore our story," they were calling to her now, pleading, their mouths molding into shapes that twisted her heart. Dark laughter slipped through the cracks of the house, chilling her blood. The neighbors' fingers curled, lips twisted, took a step forward, their faces ghastly, sucked dry of humanity. "Join us, Sarah," they hissed. "Be one with our suffering." The urge to flee surged through her. But where to go? The house was a labyrinth, alive, breathing, each room pulsating with its tales of loss. What had she unleashed by noticing their plight? The fabric of the house vibrated around her, an echo resonating in her bones. "Mommy! They're coming in!" Emma screamed. Dread twisted like a knife in her gut. The shadows gaped, dark forms moving toward them, creeping closer and closer. Fear gripped her, suffocating, almost intoxicating. "We can't stay here." As a cold hand grazed her back, she turned, her breath hitching. "We have to uncover their story." The trepidation surged, seemingly alive as dread and resolve intertwined. Shouting over the consuming whisper of darkness, she yelled, "Help me find the truth. I will restore your story." With a sudden explosion of light, the shadows recoiled, and the chanting abruptly stopped, almost as if time paused to let her words resonate. But was it truly enough? The distant sound of breaking glass shattered the tenuous air. Something was about to happen, something wicked and unknown. Would the truth save them, or plunge them deeper into despair? The once pleading faces stared back with hopeful betrayal, and Sarah knew she had unearthed the key. At what cost would it come? The silence was a sharp knife, slicing through the thick air, leaving Sarah breathless. She held her daughters close, their bodies trembling like leaves in a storm. With the shadows momentarily thwarted, it was as if every soul in the house paused, waiting to see what she would do next. The photograph still glowed faintly in her grasp, as if alive, begging to tell its tale. "Mommy, I'm scared." Lily's voice trembled, the innocence of her words cutting deep. "Me too, sweetie," Sarah whispered, swallowing the dread pooling in her throat. "But we need to be brave." Just then, the walls shuddered, the house groaning as if in agony. The photo's shimmer intensified, revealing the women's faces more clearly. They weren't just victims. They were vessels of sorrow, spirits trapped in these walls, yearning for release. But how could she possibly restore their story? "Restore our story," echoed in her ears once more, insistent, demanding, as if the house itself were now part of the chorus. The shadows may have shrunk back, but she could feel their malevolence pulsing, waiting for an opportunity to strike again. As if answering her unspoken fear, the floorboards creaked. A heavy footfall echoed from the darkness beyond. The door behind them rattled violently, the screams of the crowd outside merging with a distant growl, an almost animalistic rage. "Don't move!" she hissed, clutching her daughters tighter. The noise grew to a crescendo, drowning out the whispers, an overwhelming cacophony that surged through her entire being. The scent of rot filled the air, thick and suffocating. A low chant began, structured, different from before. This sounded like a ritual, dark and ancient. Through the flickering of the once familiar warmth, the silhouettes outside pressed closer. Those ghastly neighbors, embodiments of dread, now seemed to be joined by something far worse, a shifting mass of shadowy figures, coalescing into an unholy amalgamation. "Help us!" a voice called from within the walls, a chilling echo that made the hairs on Sarah's neck stand on end. "They're coming!" Panic surged anew. "Get ready to run!" Sarah directed, her heart racing as she steeled herself. She had to make a plan, and fast. The girls were glued to her side, almost feral with terror. As time slipped, shadows flickered dangerously behind her like predators waiting to pounce. I need something, she thought, wrestling with her mind. Something to unlock this. Acting on intuition, she dashed toward the fireplace. The rumble of the door intensified, the voice entreating them blending into a single chant. As her hands rummaged through the ashes, her fingers brushed against something cold again, the imprint of history, significant and relentless. Grasping a heavy metal box, she dragged it into the light. The moment she opened it, a wave of ice-cold air shot through the room, cutting deeper than any blade. Inside lay a collection of ancient artifacts, each a fragment of a past steeped in tragedy. The chains, once lovely jewelry, the broken lockets, they had all belonged to the women. This box held their memories' secrets she needed to uncover. "Mommy, please!" Emma cried, pulling her sleeve as coldness wrapped around their ankles. "Just a moment, honey!" Sarah turned the items over, searching for any clue. Suddenly, a burning sensation stung her palm. One of the lockets snapped open in her grasp, revealing a small, faded photo, one of the ethereal women from the photograph, her eyes pleading. "Find me, find my pain." The whispers surged back with renewed vigor, intensifying into a chaotic storm. Before Sarah could process it, the shadows lunged, reclaiming their dominance. The darkness crept closer, but this time, it had a face haunted, desperate, and willing to consume everything in its path. "Run!" Sarah screamed, shoving the box into Lily's small arms. "We have to find a way out." She felt them coming, the darkness pressing down like a weight, wrapping around her neck, pulling her backward. But this time, there was something the photograph, the key could uncovering their pain, actually save them, or make everything worse? The question hung in the air, charged with impending doom as Sarah steeled herself against the tide. Just ahead lay the attic door, beckoning her only chance to unravel this horror. Would climbing those steps lead to revelation or devastation? With a surge of resolve, she surged forward. Desperation clawed at her as shadows whispered her name. "This way!" She urged her daughters, praying the darkness didn't devour them all. But the deeper question loomed, ready to engulf. What if the truth was darker than the shadows themselves? The attic door creaked as Sarah pushed it open, the sound eerily loud against the background of chaos. A gust of stale air rushed out, thick with dust and despair. The darkness surged behind them, a relentless tide seeking to reclaim what was once theirs. Sarah didn't look back. She could feel the heat of those malevolent eyes grazing her neck, the presence of something waiting for them to falter. "Go! Now!" she urged, shoving the girls ahead of her. The attic was cloaked in shadows, the only light seeping through the cracks in the wooden walls. Boxes and old furniture loomed like ghostly figures caught in a moment of supplication. Which way to the truth? The photo burned in her pocket, set ablaze by an unseen flame, and she could hear the women's cries rising above the underground chant. "Mommy!" Lily's voice cut through the din. "I can't see." "Stay close," Sarah barked, clenching her jaw to suppress her own panicked breathing. Her mind raced with 100 thoughts. How could she save her daughters? What had they awakened? The attic was supposed to hold answers, but it felt like a trap, a snare set by the darkness lurking below. As they stepped deeper inside, they stumbled upon an old trunk. With trembling hands, Sarah pulled it open, revealing disheveled diaries. She flipped through the brittle pages, the ink smudged but the words clear. The entries detailed lives filled with anguish, each one recounting sorrow, betrayal, and lost love intermingled with despair's relentless grip. The voices of the women bled through the pages, begging to be freed. "Find us, find our pain," they whispered, a haunting melody weaving through the fabric of the room. Each diary seemed to pulse with a life of its own, resonating with the very walls of the house. "What are they saying?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "They want us to know," Sarah replied, her heart racing. She turned to the deepest entries, the words bleeding, a darkness wrapped around every sentence, seeping into her mind like poison. "They want to be remembered, to be seen." But just then, a heavy sound reverberated through the floor above, a thud, followed by a chilling silence that felt as if the world had suddenly held its breath. Shadows writhed behind her, creeping closer, almost alive. A cold, clammy hand pressed against her ankle, rooting her to the spot. Panic flared within her. "I can't stay here!" Sarah screamed, yanking her daughters back toward the door. Just as she turned, the attic window shattered violently, 1,000 shards slicing through the air like piercing screams. Cold wind rushed in, swirling with the dust and memories that had lain undisturbed for years. "Run, girls!" Desperation twisted her voice. They stumbled as if in slow motion, ducking beneath an invisible weight that threatened to crush them. Shadows danced, twisting into grotesque figures that clawed at their sanity. Sarah pushed them forward, praying for the staircase, praying for an escape that felt increasingly elusive. Suddenly, the whispers erupted, filling their ears with urgency, demanding attention. "You must not leave! You must help us first!" The very walls seemed to shake with their cries, every diary echoing with desperation. Then, the floorboards beneath them gave a sudden groan. An ominous crack split through the wood as something beneath surged, clawing its way to the surface. "Here they come!" Emma shrieked as Sarah pulled them away from the now collapsing room. Heart racing, she felt the pull of the darkness once more, tugging her back toward the truth layered in those diaries. But could she afford to dive deeper into their pain when her own daughters faced mortal danger? "Mommy, we're going to die!" Lily screamed, tears streaming down her cheeks. Sarah felt her resolve hardening as the split in the floor widened. Would she risk everything? "No! We won't die here!" But just as they reached the door, a figure appeared, a shadow with a face. She froze, the whispering shadows converging, and the vision filled her mind, hazy, sorrowful images, lives lived in torment. "Help us," it growled, its breath icy and foreboding. This was only the beginning of their descent into horror, into the raw heart of suffering. Would knowing their pain shatter them, or would it illuminate a path forward? The darkness churned, creeping closer. What awaited them on the other side? The answer lingered ominously ahead, and Sarah knew one thing for certain: time was running out. The shadow lunged forward, dark tendrils stretching like a hungry beast reaching for its prey. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest as she saw the twisted face emerge, a grotesque blend of sorrow and rage. She yanked her daughters closer, feeling their small bodies tremble against her side. "Run!" she urged, her voice a raw whisper as they scrambled toward the door. Just as they dashed past the trunk, a cacophony of screams erupted from the diaries, drowning out reason. The air thickened with despair, and the shadows encroached, puffing into life armored and malicious. Another thud reverberated from the upper floor, sending tremors through the very beams overhead. The ceiling trembled, dust and broken wood flakes raining down like a warning. "Mommy, please!" Emma wailed, her fingers clutching tightly to Sarah's coat, her wide eyes reflecting nothing but terror. "Keep moving!" Sarah cried, the weight of desperation pushing her toward the door. She could feel the eyes as they watched, each cold gaze promising eternal darkness. The room narrowed, the shadows closing in, whispering her name and the names of countless others lost to this horror. Sarah reached for the doorknob, hands slick with sweat and fear, but the door wouldn't budge. It felt glued, as if strands of anguish wove themselves tightly around the frame, holding them captive. "Help us!" the voice crept into her mind again, echoing through the very space they occupied. It wrapped around her thoughts, promising relief from the chaos but also demanding a tribute, a connection to pain long buried. "No!" she shouted, shaking her head violently. The memories and voices clawed at her resolve. "We're not here to help you." A fierce howl from the shadow surged toward her, swirling with incoherent rage and desperate sobs. For a moment she glimpsed the faces of women, twisted echoes of lives once lived in this cursed place, their mouths open in silent screams. What had they endured? What torment had bound them to this house? "Mommy! It's coming!" Lily cried, her tiny fingers digging into Sarah's knee as she pointed behind them. Panic gripped Sarah's heart. Time was spilling through her fingers. She turned back to the door, pulling with all her might. Desperation ignited her strength, and with one last effort, the door gave way with a sickening creak, flinging open into the dark hallway. The girls rushed ahead, but the air felt charged, heavy with treachery. Something charged forward, racing just behind them, breath hot against their backs. It only fueled Sarah's adrenaline as she bolted after her daughters, the weight of darkness threatening to swallow them whole. They burst into the narrow hallway, and Sarah's breath caught when she noticed how the walls pulsed, decorated with dark stains that resembled fingers reaching out. The scent of earth and decay hung thick in the air. The place wasn't merely haunted, it was alive, writhing with anguish. She could feel it wrapping around them, like a tightening vice. "Where do we go?" Emma cried, her breath coming in frenzied gasps, her eyes darting left and right as the shadows whispered their ancient moan, "Help us remember, follow me." Sarah shouted, her voice trembling but strong enough to keep the girls moving. They raced down the corridor, the oppressive weight of dread trailing behind them. Each step away from the attic felt like an act of rebellion against the past. The hallway twisted, leading them toward an old staircase that spiraled down into darkness. An impossible choice loomed ahead: descend into the unknown or retrace their steps into the violent embrace of the attic. She hesitated, holding her breath. But the shadows from above surged forward, forcing a decision. No turning back! Sarah shouted, grabbing the girls as they barreled down the decrepit stairs, the air around them chilled with every step. As they descended, an icy breeze rushed up the staircase, pulling at them like an unseen force. The whispers grew fervent, promising salvation if they only turned back. "Mommy!" Lily's voice quivered, dragging Sarah from her thoughts. "What do we do?" Sarah's eyes widened as they reached a landing lined with more doors. Each one seemed darker than the last, draped with the weight of countless stories echoing in misery. "Pick one!" she yelled, urgency clawing at her throat. They had no time. Whatever had pursued them was gaining, shadows thickening as pressure swelled in the air around them. Then she saw it. One door stood ajar, a faint glow beckoning from within. A truth waiting to be uncovered, or another trap. "Go through that door," Sarah commanded, and as they rushed forward, she couldn't shake the feeling that whatever lay behind it was just as dangerous as the darkness chasing them. In that moment, a piercing scream erupted from behind. The darkness roared, hungry and relentless, mixing in with the whispers that now formed a chorus of agony. What truth awaited them beyond the threshold? Only one thing was clear: they had awoken something terrible, and the horror was far from over. They stumbled through the door, Sarah pushing her daughters ahead of her as the room swallowed them whole. The moment they crossed the threshold, the faint glow vanished, replaced by an oppressive darkness that felt thick enough to choke on. "Mommy?" Emma's voice squeaked, laced with panic. Sarah squeezed her hand tighter, willing them all to stay together. A low hum vibrated through the air, an undercurrent of energy that made the hair on her neck stand on end. It felt both inviting and grotesque. The faint outline of walls emerged, painted in peeling greens and browns, but the glow had left. Now only shadows danced around them, taunting and flickering like candlelight. Just as Sarah opened her mouth to whisper words of reassurance, a creaking sound echoed from the corner of the room. Every instinct screamed at her to flee. "Shh!" She hushed, pressing a finger to her lips. "Let us listen." In that moment of silence, the shadows shifted. Dark figures took shape in the corners, a flow of images from the past. Women in tatters, their faces hidden, moved in sorrowful dances, as if reenacting a tragedy endlessly. Their eyes filled with despair, silently pleading for something Sarah couldn't understand. "They can't be real," Lily whimpered, clinging to Sarah's leg. "Stay close," Sarah whispered back, fighting to suppress her own rising fear. The ground felt like it vibrated beneath her feet, trembling as though the house itself shook with the echoes of their cries. Suddenly, a loud crash erupted from deeper within the room, sending a cascade of old dust and debris into the air. A figure emerged from the dimness, a man wrapped in shadows. His eyes glowed like embers in this black void, piercing and hungry. "Why have you come?" he rasped, each word curling around them like smoke. There was a heavy weight to his presence that made it harder for Sarah to breathe. "We're just passing through," she stuttered, her voice cracking beneath the weight of dread. "We didn't mean to intrude." Passing through? The form stepped closer, the shadows swirling around him, twisting and shifting like serpents reaching out. You cannot pass. Not before you give me what I seek. His gaze flickered to her daughters, and a stabbing fear clawed at Sarah's heart. Get away from them! The man laughed, a sound chilling to her bones. They are tethered to this place now, just as you. Tell me your sorrows and I will let you go, or perhaps I will keep one of them, a sacrifice for the ones trapped here. No! Sarah shouted, her defiance sharpening in an instant. You can have them. But her voice wobbled, uncertainty gnawing at her as she took a step back, feeling the walls close in. Lily clung to Emma, tears streaming down her cheeks, mirroring all of Sarah's fears. The shadows whispered again, seductive secrets promising freedom but always returning to pain. Sarah focused on the man, refusing to back down. What do you want? She demanded, the tremble in her voice betraying her. Only the truth, he replied, fingers curling with sinister anticipation. What binds you to this horror? What pain do you want to bury? Speak, and perhaps you will escape. The air thickened, each breath feeling more burden than the last. Sarah felt her memories flare, each loss, each anguish that had brought her to this point, flooding back with vivid clarity. But as she grasped for the words, something slithered in the shadows, a flicker of movement. An icy chill shot up her spine. Mommy! Emma screamed, pointing toward the corner as a figure emerged from darkness, an apparition with tearing eyes and a hand reaching out. Run! Sarah shouted, propelled by fear. They scrambled backward, leaving the ghastly figure behind, but the dark man's laughter echoed, reverberating through the room and following them into the void. Where was freedom? The door they entered felt like it was closing on all sides. What awaited them if they couldn't escape? Then they heard it, a low chant, rising from the shadows, a desperate chorus that intertwined with the cries of those trapped within the walls. A pulse of light flickered. Again in the distance, beckoning with promise. Was it hope or doom? Go, go! Sarah shouted, fear clawing at her throat as they sprinted toward the glow, unsure what awaited them on the other side. As they neared the light, icy fingers brushed against Sarah's back, dragging her toward the darkness behind. Would they be consumed, or would they find the sanctuary they sought? The light flickered, leaving Sarah breathless as they hurtled toward the threshold of what lay ahead, fear entwined with the promise of truth. Would the answer set them free, or bind them to a fate worse than death? The moment Sarah lunged toward the light, she felt the grip of something inky and powerful at her back, pulling with relentless ferocity. Panic surged through her veins, coursing like fire. Hold on to me! She cried, desperate, willing her girls to cling to her with all their strength. Emma's small fingers curled tight around her wrist, while Lily grasped her leg, their little bodies trembling like leaves. The light flickered again, illuminating the terrifying darkness that surrounded them, revealing the view of grotesque faces twisted in anguish. Mothers, sisters, lost souls within the house's depths, their specters stretching for a semblance of freedom, trapped in a dance of pain. Mommy, Emma's voice faltered in a whisper, eyes wide with dread. Sarah turned, taking in the swirling chaos around them, the shadows pulsing as though alive. The figure of the man loomed closer, his wicked smile illuminating the flickering light. What do you seek? He called out, his voice scraping against the very air they breathed. What pain can you bear to leave behind? Sarah felt her heart thud painfully against her chest, a drum echoing the fear that pounded within her. She had lost so much already, her home, her peace, even her husband, to the shadows of life. Memories clashed, and a part of her screamed to run, yet another part hesitated. Would sharing the truth save them or doom them? Stop! She bellowed, focusing on the flicker of hope in that light, as if daring to believe it could provide solace. You don't own us. We're leaving. The shadows recoiled, but the man stepped forward, his dark form burgeoning with power. You belong to this place. You can't escape. Can you face your truths? The light flickered again, a tremulous beacon in the void. Sarah's breathing quickened, pulse racing. She could feel that raw energy washing over her, cool and electric, but it held a dark promise. No! She shouted, summoning everything she had within her. The pull from behind intensified, and she could feel the air turn heavier, thicker, each breath a struggle. Suddenly, the chant escalated, voices merging into a cacophony that echoed through the room. It was as though the air had come alive, swirling around them, laden with sorrow and despair. For a moment, it pulled Sarah's focus, a morbid melody wrapping around her, tugging her down another path, forcing her to remember every shred of pain. Then, a flash illuminated the room, a collision of dark and light, an explosion of sound as the shadows twisted violently. The air crackled with energy, and in the heart of it all, Sarah caught a fleeting glimpse of herself standing alone on the edge of grief, begging for relief. "Mommy!" Her girls' cries jolted her senses. "Move!" she roared, dragging them forward. They plunged into the light, but the pull from the shadows clung to them. Glimmers of memories danced in her mind, moments too painful to relive, but with each step toward the glowing exit, she grasped at those memories to thread them into strength. But the shadows persisted, trying to draw them back, latching on to her heart like leeches. "You cannot leave!" the man hissed. His presence writhed oppressive. And then she felt a doubt, a sudden rush surge from the back of her throat, a connection to something past, truths she had long buried. The depth of her grief roiled within her like a storm, a fierce wind pushing her to fight. "No! You will not have us!" The proclamation broke free, a rallying cry laden with hurt, defiance unleashing power. The light before them blazed, grew brighter in response to her fury, sending shadows scraping back. But as they neared the exit, the dark man interjected, his laughter echoing, rippling like a pulse, growing darker. "Yet one of you must pay!" The ground shook beneath them, and Sarah felt her grips slipping. The light sparkled ahead, urging them onward. "From the tragedy of others the truth lurks," he whispered, chilling her bones. What sacrifice was needed? Would they need to face an unspeakable choice to finally break free? As echoes of their past surged with the rising shadows, uncertainty gnawed at Sarah. What awaited them outside? The exit pulsed, thumping in rhythm with Sarah's racing heart. Would they reach it in time, or were they forever bound to a grave fate? In that precarious moment, she felt a surge of warmth from her daughters, their love pushing her to fight against the howling darkness behind. But they could not escape what the house demanded, at least, not without confronting the truth lurking in that black void. Time was running out. Would they pay the price to emerge unscathed, or would darkness catch them just one heartbeat too late? Sarah's breath came in ragged gasps as they sprinted toward the light. The oppressive darkness trailed behind like a predator, claws itching to sink into their flesh. Each step felt like a betrayal. The shadows around them writhed, whispering twisted tales that clawed at her sanity. "Hold on!" she shouted, her voice breaking, barely cutting through the deafening chaos. Emma's grip tightened, her face pale, eyes wide and pleading. Lily's small body quaked against her, radiating pure terror. But they pressed on, forging their way through the swirling horror. As they drew closer to the light, it pulsed rhythmically, as if alive, bright and inviting, yet tinged with the desperation of what lay beyond. "Mommy, I'm scared!" Emma shrieked, the majesty of her innocence shattering like glass. "Me too," Sarah admitted. Her pulse quickened as she glanced back. The man's shadow loomed ominously, his laughter echoing dreadfully. It danced on the brink of something dark and twisted, urging her to falter. "We can't stop. Not now." "We'll be okay," she said, though doubt gnawed at her insides. What did okay even mean now? This place fed on their fears, transforming once small sorrows into monstrous shadows clawing at the edges of their minds. With every step, she could feel the walls tightening around them, the very fabric of the house constricting like a noose. "You must face your sacrifice," the dark man boomed, his voice slicing through the tension. "One of you shall remain. One must remain to feed the hunger of this house." "No!" Sarah cried, flinging her arms wide as if to shield her girls from the malignant threat. "We are a family. We leave together." The moment felt suspended in time, as if the universe was awaiting her decree. Would she let fear consume her, turn her against her own? The weight of choices danced in the air, thick and heavy. Suddenly, black tendrils shot from the darkness, wrapping around Lily's ankle, dragging her downward. "Mommy! Help!" Lily screamed, fear cracking her voice. "Get off her!" Sarah yelled, yanking fiercely against the shadows. Emma tugged at her mother's sleeve, tears streaming down her cheeks. With a surge of adrenaline, Sarah lunged, grasping Lily's hand. The light flickered violently, urging her on with blinding urgency. But even as she pulled, dark whispers coiled in her ears. "Let her go. You could be free. Let her be the one to remain." The nightmarish suggestions slithered through her thoughts, taunting her. "You've already lost so much, Sarah. Don't lose her too. Do it, Mommy!" "I'm not scared," Lily shouted, her small voice a beacon amid the chaos. Sarah's heart shattered at the intangible bravery radiating from her daughter. "No!" The word twisted in Sarah's throat, but a surge of memories surged over her. Images of happier days, of warmth and laughter, all threatened to fall into the oblivion of shadows. The truth pulsated inside her like a live wire, raw and potent with emotions. Together they would either break the curse or be consumed by it. In a final, desperate bid, Sarah shouted, "You take one of us, you take all of us." With that resolve, she tightened her hold, pulling her daughters closer, feeling every heartbeat surge against the dark. Every moment was a breath of hope mixed with fear, propelling them toward the light. But as they closed in, the man's laughter curled around them, thick and suffocating. Such boldness! But it will only lead to despair. As they plunged into the light, the world around them exploded in blinding brilliance. Then, in an instant, shadows swallowed the warmth, and Sarah felt the floor give way beneath her. She screamed, feeling the pull of darkness beckoning her with open arms, promising release. Suddenly, a piercing shriek cut through the silence, the very sound of terror splintering her mind. What was lost now? What price would be paid to escape? As the light pulsed again, she grasped at the fabric of reality. But what awaited felt more terrifying than anything she could have imagined, a revelation spiraling in dread. In the dark, would Sarah dare to uncover the monster within? Would one of them remain in this abyss of shadows, or would they all perish before finding freedom again? The shadows erupted around Sarah, swirling like a violent tempest as the light flickered, threatening to disappear like a mirage. She gripped Lily and Emma tighter, the fierce pull of darkness at their heels igniting primal fear. "We're almost there," she shouted, every word a prayer to whatever spirit lingered in that radiant glow ahead. "Mommy!" Emma cried, desperately pulling at her sleeve as the walls trembled. "I don't want to be here." A fierce wind screamed through the corridor, carrying with it the desperate howls of the tortured souls tied to this cursed house. "Just keep holding on," Sarah shouted, her heart hammering as the realization of what awaited them surged loss, horror, and a choice none of them should have to make. Yet the darkness spurred her on, whispering insidious thoughts, promising power and peace if she just let one go. But she couldn't. She wouldn't. They were a family, bound in love and struggle, and they would face this terrible fate together or not at all. "No one gets left behind," she yelled. "We face it all together." In a final push, they barreled toward the light, feet pounding against the floor as power erupted from her spoken vow. The man's figure trailed behind, hungry tendrils reaching but failing to grasp. "You think unity will save you?" he howled, his laughter reverberating, ice creeping into their veins. The shadows seemed to falter, recoiling around them as they raced closer to the bright threshold of freedom. With one final leap, they plunged into the glow, and for an instant everything felt suspended, a heart-stopping pause as they breached the barrier between despair and hope. Then, a tropical warmth enveloped them, washing over like a summer breeze, pushing the heaviness behind and ushering in relief so profound it momentarily blinded Sarah. As their vision cleared, they found themselves not in the hallway but in an ethereal garden bursting with color, as if the darkness had never screamed behind them. Sunlight dripped through leaves that shimmered like gold, filling the air with warmth and the sweet scent of blooming flowers, a stark contrast to the horrors they had just escaped. "Where are we?" Emma breathed, her eyes darting in wonder. A safe place, Sarah murmured, the tremor of fear slowly being replaced by disbelief. A place without shadows. Lily blinked at her, her small fingers still clutching the hem of Sarah's shirt. Did we escape? We did, sweet girl. We are free. Tears of relief streamed down Sarah's face, her joy crashing over her like a wave after a storm. Emma reached for her sister, pulling her close, and together they marveled at their surroundings, wildflowers swaying gently in the breeze. But then, the realization struck Sarah. What about them? The thought of the lost souls tethered to that house, trapped and still whispering for help, pierced her heart. She looked down at her daughters, filled with innocence, and a sense of vindication washed over her. They need a voice, Sarah declared, a newfound purpose igniting within her. Mommy? Lily asked, hesitant but trusting, her gaze darting between Sarah and Emma. Those women gave everything, they lived a nightmare while we ran from our own, she whispered. Let us not let their stories fade. We can find a way to honor them. The sun's rays seemed to brighten, and for a moment, she felt the weight of the past lift, just a bit. It wouldn't go away completely, but together they would illuminate the darkness. We can tell their stories, Emma added, her small face brightening with sudden clarity. Yes. We will tell them all, Sarah affirmed. They loved, they suffered, but they deserved to be remembered. At that moment, the connection between them shimmered with strength, a bright embodiment of defiance against the darkness they had left behind. They would carry that weight, transforming it into purpose. As they stood amid the wildflowers, the echoes of pain resided, but now intertwined with hope. And we'll help others, Sarah promised, embracing her daughters. We'll help those who feel lost, who are still battling their own shadows. From that day forward, they would be an unyielding force, sharing the stories of the temple women, unraveling the past so that no one else would have to face such dark burdens alone. Days turned into months, months into years. They created a haven for others, a place where truths could be aired, wounds healed, and darkness met courage head-on. Free not just from the house, but liberated with a mission. And as they walked together under the sun, Sarah felt the warmth promised by the garden. The memories of the past lingered still, each story a thread spinning around them, weaving a tapestry of resilience and strength. In this new life, they were whole. And the spirits? With each story shared, Sarah felt their thirst for recognition quenched in every grasp of her daughter's hands, every moment spent in sunlight. They remembered, and so would the world. Sarah turned to her daughters, their laughter dancing upon the breeze, and she knew that their lives would always honor those lost spirits. She smiled, embracing the depths of joy that had risen amidst pain and darkness, joy meant to be shared, celebrated, and honored. As twilight descended in soft hues across the horizon, Sarah looked back at the house one last time. It stood quiet, shadows now subdued, mirrors of the stories they had released. The past had found respite, and so had they. The journey had changed them, but it was a journey shared, a testament that they had poured their pain into light. And then life moved forward, embracing both the love and the sorrow that had etched their lives in shades of remembrance. Now, dear friends, if you enjoyed this conclusion and these characters' journeys, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Thank you for your support. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Your thoughts matter to us. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Always remember, only true fans understand the importance of these actions. Your connection supports our storytelling journey.